Welcome to CNN Student News. First up this Wednesday, President Obama has announced a new task force. Its job, study police practices, work with law enforcement and community activists to build accountability and trust between communities and police. This has to do with Ferguson, Missouri. Racial tensions flared when a white police officer shot and killed a black 18-year-old on August 9th. After hearing evidence, a grand jury decided not to charge the officer with wrongdoing. Another round of violent protests followed. Police cars, businesses, and property in Ferguson were destroyed. President Obama and outgoing Attorney General Eric Holder say distrust between police and minority communities is a national problem.
The reality is that what we see in Ferguson is not restricted to Ferguson. There are other communities around this country that have these same issues that have to be dealt with, and we at the Justice Department are determined to do all that we can to bridge those divides.
Those divisions are deep. For example, the president wants limits on the ability of law enforcement agencies to buy military-style equipment. In the initial protests after the August shooting, some demonstrators and officials accused police of using unnecessary force by firing rubber bullets and tear gas on sometimes violent protesters. But after protests last week, some officials say not enough was done to protect the community, that more armed members of the National Guard should have been there. Protests over Ferguson have been nationwide. Many demonstrators say Officer Darren Wilson should have been charged in the shooting of Michael Brown. Others say it was Michael Brown's actions that led to his death. 5 players for the St. Louis Rams took the field Sunday with their hands up, showing support for the witnesses who said Michael Brown's hands were up when he was shot. The gesture angered the St. Louis Police Officers Association, who cited evidence suggesting Brown did not have his hands up when Officer Wilson opened fire. You can see how this has touched a nerve among Americans. President Obama believes body cameras worn by police could help. He's asking Congress to approve funding to cover half the cost for them, with states expected to pick up the other half. But they're not cheap.
I want to show you a body cam. This is an example of one. This is a recording device. This is the actual camera. Police here in Daytona Beach, Florida, started testing these out in 2011, and they say the cameras have helped ease tensions in several cases.
Daytona Beach police have 75 cameras right now, with plans to add 50 more by the end of the year. Each camera costs $950, and the department is paying $23,000 a year to store the video. It's a lot of money, but Chief Chitwood says it's money well spent.
I can just tell you, just from the few incidences that we had here, how it has been just a godsend for us.
So why is there so much resistance? Why doesn't every police department in the country have these body cams?
Change is number one. Cops don't like change. Cost is number 2.
And another reason, according to critics,
every single thing you say is going to be recorded, scrutinized, and so forth. And I think that would put a hindrance on cops. It would create a problem with them in dealing with the everyday public.
I feel that I can do my job a lot better now.
Officer Dale Kelly uses a body camera every day.
This camera will protect me.
We were with him as he responded to a call. His body camera engaged, capturing his drive to the scene and what he did once we arrived.
What's your name?
When would you say the camera is most useful?
I would say anytime that you come in contact with the public.
We wanted to see for ourselves how the cameras work.
So right now, you are recording.
Right now, we're recording.
Everything you see, everything you hear is being captured by that camera.
That's correct.
After a brief demonstration, Officer Mike O'Terry helped me gear up.
Line it up with the tabs and push down until it clicks. Good.
The recording device on my belt, the camera on my head.
Okay.
It's not that uncomfortable. It's kind of like wearing a headband.
I turned it on.
All I have to do is just...
You press that button twice.
And went for a walk, recording my every move.
Right now we're in the shade.
Right.
So if I were to walk out into the bright sun, what would happen?
The camera will adjust.
The technology, Chief Chitwood says, is invaluable.
Is this the future?
In my heart, this is the future. It's here. We might as well embrace it.
Concussions and football. Legal cases involving how leagues have handled these injuries already exist at the professional and college levels. A new one has been filed at the high school level. It's only in the state of Illinois, but the attorney involved says he hopes to sue every high school athletic association in the U.S. to change the rules to make football safer. The suit was filed on behalf of a 29-year-old man who played high school ball between 1999 and 2003. His lawyer says he had many concussions, but wasn't educated about the risks or the effects of them, and that more than 10 years later, he still has migraines and memory loss. The nonprofit Illinois High School Association, which regulates the state's athletics, says concussion management remains a top priority. Some neurosurgeons say because adolescents are still developing, concussions are especially dangerous for them. Synthetic drugs or designer drugs are incredibly dangerous, and they're hard for police to keep track of. Many are made overseas, mostly in China, according to the U.S. government. And substances like bath salts, spice, and K2 are constantly being altered to help makers avoid breaking laws against known drugs. They're popular among teenagers. They can kill in one use.
In the week of June 10, 2012, law enforcement in Grand Forks were dealing with an outbreak of violent overdoses. A mystery drug on the streets had already killed 2 teenagers.
We've got multiple overdoses. We've got 2 young men that have lost their lives. I mean, what's more serious than that?
Tim Purdon is the U.S. Attorney for North Dakota.
That was unprecedented. I've been U.S. Attorney now for going on 4 years. This is the only time we've reached out to a school system, to the university, and said, hey, there's this danger on the streets right now that people need to be aware about.
As the emergency warnings were being issued, investigators were desperately trying to find out just what this drug was, and more importantly, where it came from.
It took lab analysis to determine the true nature of these substances. When we learned what they were, 2-CI-NBOMe, 2-CC-NBOMe, that was new to us.
2-CI-NBOMe and 2-CC-NBOMe are synthetic designer drugs, chemicals designed to imitate the high of the banned drug LSD. North Dakota's top federal drug prosecutor had never heard of them, and neither had Christian Björk's parents.
I had to go to the internet and look up information on it. And I really didn't understand the whole synthetic drug. I didn't know what it was, didn't know how dangerous they were.
The message we got after we went on the internet was that somebody had said it was okay for these drugs to be on the street, and they had been tweaked. But that's all we knew.
Synthetic LSD has been blamed for at least...
Parents across the country are now learning the painful truth about synthetic designer drugs.
Investigators say he overdosed on a synthetic marijuana,
otherwise known as K2.
With deaths and overdoses reported almost daily.
Hi guys, this is Drew Griffin. I want to thank Carl for letting me speak to you just a little bit. You know, there have been 300 of these so-called designer drugs. They are chemical poisons. That is what they are. When they come out of these laboratories in China, they are stamped not for human use, research chemicals. And that's why the DEA, the parents, all want to send out the warning that, listen, you shouldn't try these because nobody knows the potency or just how dangerous they are.
When a lot of people hear the term Maverick, they think Top Gun. We think Madison, Mississippi. That's where the Mavericks are watching today. Great to have you aboard over at Germantown High School. One state east in the city of Auburn, Alabama, we're calling on the Tigers. They're at Auburn High School and Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's home to Brockle Middle School. It's where rockets are blasting off. We may be a ways from having packages delivered by drones, but robots are helping move products around warehouses. They look like a fleet of Roombas, and they're mighty. They're not advanced enough to pick things off the shelves, but they are strong enough to pick up the shelves and move them to Amazon's warehouse workers. An analyst says they will eventually replace jobs. Amazon insists they won't. There's no denying they save workers a lot of steps. Tried to interview them, they were kind of robotic. They seemed really remote and they just tended to drone on. But they drive circuits around the warehouse, they take a lot of orders, and they still find their tasks fulfilling. We're shipping more stories and puns your way tomorrow. I'm Carl Azus.